Ransom by Angele Smith. It was just a normal Saturday, nothing to do, no one to see. Ever since all of Kate's friends had gone away to college, she didn't really have anyone to hang out with. In a perfect world, Kate would have gone to college too, but she just wasn't ready, and against her mother's wishes, hoping to travel the world, she decided to have a gap year of sorts. As Kate was walking down the busy streets of New York City, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following her. After numerous glances behind her shoulder, she finally figured out who her admirer was. "Ryan," Kate said with a gasp. Ryan had been Kate's crush since the 4th grade. And don't worry, this isn't one of those stories where the popular guy doesn't notice the quiet little girl all of her life, and then poof, he finally sees her in the hall or something, and they fall in love right then and there. Kate and Ryan had dated only God knows how many times. It just never seemed to work between them. "Hey, Kate," Ryan almost whispered. There was no question that he was nervous. I mean, who likes getting caught stalking their ex-girlfriend? "We haven't talked in like 9 years. How have you been?" asked Kate. Ryan chuckled at Kate's over-exaggerated length of time. That was actually one of the things that made him so in love with her. Good. Just got home for the holiday. How about you?" Kate stared into his blue eyes, her own deep chestnut eyes tearing up as she explained the whole not being ready for Yale thing. The very same college the two of them had been planning on going to together since they were 11. Ryan just nodded and tried to understand how a girl as smart and adventurous as Kate could not be ready for college. To be completely honest, that's also the way Kate viewed herself. She had prepared her entire life to go to Yale, just like her mother and father did. She just simply wasn't ready. Kate and Ryan made small talk for a little while longer, and they parted ways, as all friends do. Kate knew that fact all too well. When Kate finally got home from her day out on the town, it was no surprise to see her mother passed out on the couch. Ever since her parents divorced, Kate's mom started drinking excessively, and it was becoming a big issue. Though her mother would downright kill her if she even whispered a word about it to anyone. Kate's twin brother, Charlie, had gone with the family plan of actually going to college, except he was so smart he got to skip a grade back in middle school, so he's actually a sophomore. Kate's entire life was people asking her why she wasn't as smart as her twin, yet older brother. Everyone comparing her to Charlie caused her to take so much pride in the one thing she had that he didn't: popularity. For Kate, making friends was easy. She never really had to try to fit in, and it just came natural. While Kate was planning a fabulous soiree, Charlie would be studying for some test, and he would still be the family center of attention, and Kate would no longer stand for it. Things just seemed to get worse for Kate. A few weeks back, she threw a party for all of her old high school friends, but no one seemed too interested in going to a party with someone who wasn't in college. To them, Kate was practically still in high school. Well, everyone except Ryan, apparently. Kate heated the oven to 400 and started cooking dinner for herself, something she had been accustomed to since she was 14. All of a sudden, the doorbell rang. Kate opened the heavy oak door, and lo and behold, it was her attractive stalker from earlier that day. "Ryan, hey, what are you doing here?" Kate asked, suddenly aware of her raggedy t-shirt with an old pair of blue jeans and dirty hair. This was no way to greet a guest, she thought, embarrassed immediately. "I have horrible news, and I need your help, now," Ryan said in a hurry as he pushed into the foyer of Kate's large and almost empty house. She would show him around the house so he knew where everything was, but he just told her that they had no time for this and that he knew his house like his own. He'd been there so many times. Ryan sat down on the brown leather sectional where Kate's mom had just been unconscious, and pulled out his laptop, and he started typing, not saying a word. Kate, though super confused as to why a guy who she just saw this morning for 5 months was A, at her house, and B, needed her help. She sat down next to him and peered over his shoulder to see what he was working so furiously at. He pulled the Mac away from her and stared into her eyes, almost daring her to try and look again. "Don't. If you know what's good for you, don't," he said, looking at the computer again. "Fine," she said, frustrated, but not looking to argue. "I'll go finish making my dinner," Kate said, standing up. "Want some?" she asked Ryan. Not looking up from his laptop, he nodded. Upon returning to the kitchen, Kate noticed her baked chicken had cooked a little too long and was burnt. Tired and defeated, she decided to just order Chinese. She grabbed the menu from the drawer of countless takeout restaurants across the city. Takeout was just the easiest on Kate and her mom, now that it was just the two of them. Kate dialed the number and was about to press the call button when she heard Ryan scream. She rushed into the living room to find him yelling at his computer, almost in tears. "What? What is it?" Kate asked, very worried by Ryan's sudden outburst. "He's gone." "They actually took him," he spoke, his voice hollow, almost a whisper. Kate rushed over to the computer, which she had thrown to the floor in frustration. Upon looking at the screen, she figured out the reason Ryan was so upset. It was an email from an anonymous address saying that if he didn't pay $2 million by tonight, the anonymous person would take Charlie. Kate stared at the screen, speechless, occasionally saying a word or two that Ryan couldn't make out. They both sat in silence for a few seconds before Kate actually realized what was happening. This guy approaches her on the street after not seeing her in 5 months, shows up at her house saying something is wrong, but doesn't actually tell her her brother is being held ransom until there was no way to get him back. That made Kate furious. No, more than furious. It made her insane. Kate started screaming and crying and throwing whatever she could reach at the paralyzed man sitting on her couch. Kate could not believe what was happening. Kate looked at Ryan in utter disgust. "How could you? How could you not pay the money? Your family's loaded. They wouldn't have missed it, and if they did, they could suck it up. $2 million for my brother's life, and you choose something that has no soul, no future, and no life? $2 million may be a lot of money, but my brother's life is priceless, Ryan. I am honestly so utterly disgusted." Kate stood up and stormed out of the house. She turned her head as she got to the door. "You're going to regret this, you know. Maybe one day your family will know the pain of losing someone, but until then you have no idea how it feels to be so alone in this big world. And if you're smart, you won't even think of following me." Kate slammed the door as Ryan came within 4 feet of it. Ryan opened the door and saw Kate yell for a taxi. Ryan stood there and thought to himself. Kate was right. He was loaded. But he thought that maybe he could have fixed it without paying the money. He wondered where Kate could have been headed. Her family wasn't poor, but there was no way anyone in Kate's family could have been able to pay off the ransom. There wasn't really anyone Ryan could think of in Kate's circle of friends, besides himself, that had that kind of money. Then Ryan started wondering why he was the one the kidnapper contacted. He was in no way related to Kate's family, and how would the kidnapper know that Ryan would have even cared? Could they have known about Kate and Ryan's relationship? This was just all too confusing for Ryan, and he didn't like the thought that kept racing to his mind whenever he thought of who could have taken Charlie, because whenever he did, the only person who came in his mind was Kate. Ryan hopped into his black BMW and raced off after the cab that picked up his love interest. No matter how much he tried to put out the thought of Kate taking Charlie for ransom, he could only think about how much Kate wanted to travel and how she would need the funds to do so. Ryan was snapped out of his thoughts as the cab in front of him came to an abrupt stop. Kate jumped out of the vehicle and raced toward what looked like an old abandoned office building. Ryan parked his car, paid the meter, and ran after her. In any normal love story, this is when the sister goes and sacrifices herself for her brother, and then the love interest of the sister sacrifices his life in return for hers. This is not a normal love story. It's barely a love story at all. Kate slips into a back door, clearly left open by someone who has been there recently. Ryan follows closely after, but far back enough so she doesn't notice she's being followed. Kate races up 3 flights of stairs to an open landing, with her brother Charlie tied up in a chair in the middle of the room. Ryan reaches the top of the stairs right as Kate removes the duct tape from Charlie's mouth. Charlie yelps in pain and then looks up to see Ryan's confused face feet away from the both of them. "Kate, how did you know? How did you know where to find him?" Ryan stammers. Kate turns around and looks Ryan straight in the eye. "Do you think it's easy? Do you think I enjoy constantly being compared to Mr. Perfect over here?" Kate gestures to her brother, still tied up. "Well, it's not. All I want to do is travel, see the crystal clear waters and white sand on the beaches of the Maldives, the Grand Canyon, and the Great Wall of China. Smell the fresh-baked bread on the streets of Italy on a warm summer day. And I can't do any of that because my alcoholic mother is upset because I don't want to go to Yale." Kate scoffs and looks at the floor. "We couldn't have paid for it anyway." She turned back toward her brother. "Do you know what you did? Do you know how much pain you've caused me? Do you know what it feels like to be so alone? No, you don't. But you soon will." Kate pulled out a gun from her coat pocket. Ryan and Charlie both let out a gasp. "Kate, please, think about what you're doing," Ryan says as calmly as he can while taking a step back. Charlie lets out a small, "Please, Kate," as he sits there crying, begging for her to stop. Kate took the gun off safety and placed it against her twin brother's temple. She leaned over to whisper into his ear, tears rolling down her face. "It's all your fault. You don't know the pain and sadness you've caused me. You deserve this, and much more. But I'm just going to kill you, because to truly make you feel how I felt, it'd take years of torment." She kissed her brother on the cheek and pulled the trigger. Kate stood there, trembling next to her now dead brother, unable to speak, hugging him, tears slowly running down her blood-splattered cheeks. She had almost completely forgotten about Ryan. He couldn't leave here. He'd tell everyone. He'd tell her mom, and she couldn't handle the look on her mom's face if she ever found out. Kate turned around to face her witness, both of them not able to stop trembling. She lifted her shaky arm and pointed it at Ryan's heart. When Ryan saw what Kate was doing, he dropped to his knees and started crying, begging at her feet for her to spare his life, for he loved her, and he would never tell anyone what she had done. But Kate couldn't live with him thinking that she was a murderer, so she knelt down, kissed her true love for the last time, stood up, and shot him. Kate knew that no one could leave this room. Everyone, including her. With the blood of her own brother and the only person who ever truly cared about her staining her coat, she pointed the gun at her own temple. "I'll finally have peace," she whispered. "No more judgment." Kate heard a loud bang and saw black. She had done it. She was happy. She was free. The end.